Hi, John Morgan here, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. So to get things started off today, let's take a look at some news and announcements. And the first thing that we have is something that is due as soon as possible, and that is photos for our May Yard of the Month contest. So we need to have them no later than noon tomorrow. And that way I can get everything ready to announce a winner. But we're going to do the Yard of the Month for May, June, July, and August this year. So if you miss this deadline, you can shoot for the next month. And on Wednesday, June 5th, if you live in the Belpre area, the Belpre Area Chamber of Commerce, Bob's Market, and Belpre and Bloom is having a Bloomin' Business Luncheon at the park up there next to the Belpre Area Chamber of Commerce. So for more information about that, you need to contact the Chamber of Commerce, and you can do that by emailing info@belprechamber.com. Okay, this week in our newsletter, we were talking about slugs. So, I want to talk about some natural ways to control slugs. And we covered quite a few different ways in the article. And perhaps the easiest way is just to adjust your watering habits. I'm kind of guilty of this. I always water in the evenings, which isn't always the best, but it works for my schedule. But watering in the morning will really help if you're seeing damage from slugs, because that gives time for the water to evaporate. And you know, slugs, they're wet little creatures, and they don't like dry conditions. So by giving that water time to evaporate during the day, it'll help prevent slugs. The next method, and this is the one that I actually use and it works very well, is to use diatomaceous earth. Now, diatoms are little tiny microscopic sea creatures that are now dead and fossilized. And the way diatomaceous earth is produced is there's big huge deposits of these where oceans and lakes used to be. So they can go in and mine these out, and we use them for all kinds of things. When I was researching this article, they used diatomaceous earth in pool filters because all the little pores in those tiny little creatures help filter water. They're also, those little shells are actually made out of silica, so it's basically glass. It's used in a lot of reflective paints, which I didn't know that. Pretty cool stuff. But where they're little tiny sharp, and you can see here on this picture that, you know, they're little triangles and stuff like that. Those little sharp pointy edges will cut into the soft bodies of slugs, and they don't like that, so they'll stay away from areas that have been treated with diatomaceous earth. And along the same lines of irritating a slug to keep them away, you can also use copper. And a lot of places actually sell copper tape. So it has adhesive on the back, and here you see it on a clay pot. And I've actually seen pots before that incorporate a copper band as a decorative feature on the pot, so it's both decorative and functional. And the other thing that you can do is have a kegger for your slugs. Slugs love beer. So you can set out a little cup of beer right at ground level, and they'll go over into the beer to get a drink and drown. And another easy method, very simple, costs absolutely nothing. Just lay a board out in your garden or flower bed. During the day, they'll get up underneath of it where it's nice and cool. Then you can just pick up the board, pluck the slugs off, and get rid of them. And if you're really really hate slugs and you want to kill them, you can use salt. And salt, it basically works through the process of osmosis. You're basically pulling the water out of the slug because, it's going from an area of low concentration to high concentration, But yeah, those are all very simple, very cost-effective ways to control slugs. And more importantly, they're not toxic. So you're not using, harsh chemicals or things like that to get rid of the slugs. Okay, moving on, let's take a look at the weather forecast. And we have some storms that are out and about and on the move right now. And mainly right now, the threat of storms is more off to our west. So Indiana into western Ohio, that way is more of a severe threat. And if we take a look at the current radar, you can see storms in the Cincinnati area. And those will be moving more into our area tonight. And look at that temperature there for Mason right now, 91. And actually, I took that a little while ago. I'm looking at my computer right now and it's saying 93 outside, so it is hot. And we're going to continue to have some pretty warm temperatures this weekend and kind of a lingering threat of some thunderstorms as this front moves through. So tomorrow and Sunday, most likely we're going to have storms in the evening. And then as we move later into next week, the temperature is going to drop back down a little bit. It's still going to be kind of warm, high 70s, low 80s. And of course, it being springtime, there's always a chance of a pop-up shower or thunderstorm here and there. And then moving back into later next week, we're going to start to warm up again. So looking at the long-term temperature forecast, you can see there that we've got a nice little heat wave coming up here in the first part of June. And it's going to stay pretty toasty. So, that's just par for the course this time of year. And now let's take a look at the allergy forecast. And actually right now we're kind of in between pollen levels. Tree pollen is kind of declining and grass pollen's on the rise. So we've kind of reached kind of a happy balance right now. And we're right in the middle at a 5.6. And if we take a look at the maps, I totally forgot, but I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison from a couple weeks ago to this week. But the pollen levels have dropped as far as tree pollen is concerned. And of course you can see that grass pollen, it's on the rise. So if you're a grass pollen sufferer, it's going to have an effect on you. And the last thing that we have today, kind of a short show today, is our gardening almanac. And this weekend it is going to be a great time for planting root crops. Great for vining crops, so if you need to do things like to your grapevines. I know I need to spray mine this weekend. But, it's a great time to be out working in the garden. It's also a great time to do transplanting. And the 3rd through the 5th, it's going to be a barren period. And looking at the weather forecast, there's not going to be very much rain in the forecast this week. So it's also a great time to cut hay. I know my neighbors have started cutting hay and our fields look awesome right now. So it's going to be an awesome harvest of hay this year. And the 6th and 7th, it's going to be great days for planting root crops and also for transplanting again. Well, that is our show for this week. And of course, you can always find out more on our blog and on our website at bobsmarket.com. And I'll see you next week.